Right now, I am lean, aesthetic, and eat 3,000 calories a day. But for nearly 3 years straight, I lived in a calorie deficit and still didn't have the abs that I so desperately wanted. I lost fat from my face and from my shoulders, but I was still unhappy with how much belly fat I had. So I thought, I'm just gonna have to keep cutting even harder, restrict my calories even further, and that would work, right? But it did not. My abs just remained as those skinny guy abs. They were really soft and not as defined and hard as they look like now. I was also literally starving myself. Whenever I was sitting at my desk trying to do work, all I could think about was food. I would go to the pantry in my kitchen, look at the fridge 10 times a day, just looking for something that could satisfy my cravings. And even despite me starving myself so much, I saw zero results on the scales and on my fat loss levels. I stayed the same for almost 3 years. I had no energy because of my low calorie intake. And whenever I was training at the gym, it would feel like the biggest struggle in the world. And I was literally getting weaker and weaker session on session and losing muscle whilst I was cutting this hard. So after being in literal starvation mode for almost 3 years straight, I learned 4 things. And by the way, if you're looking for a full guide and my direct assistance, you can check out my program that is the link in the description below to transform from skinny fat to muscular and lean like I have and like I've helped so many other guys. The first thing I learned is that cutting at the start as a skinny fat person is what works. So when I first started out skinny fat, I was so insecure with my levels of fat, with my belly fat, and ever having to take my shirt off whenever I'd be going to the pool, the beach, the change rooms at school. So my biggest insecurity was to just strip that fat off. And what entering a calorie deficit and cutting at the beginning stages does is give you those instant wins. It shows you that progress is truly possible. And when I paired that with training in the gym for the first time, I was able to lose fat and build muscle concurrently. So I progressed so much in my physique in just 2 months of training and being in a calorie deficit. And because I saw that growth was possible, I became quickly addicted to the gym, to training, and to eating the correct way. But the second thing I learned is that cutting works until it doesn't. You will get to a point where cutting and being in calorie deficits will no longer serve you because you will get to a point, like I did, where you've stripped your body fat percentage actually quite low. There's really only a very minimal amount of fat that's left to actually come off on your body. And what that means is you can no longer actually progress in the gym if you are not eating enough food. So I would be going to the gym session on session, and I remember this so vividly in my mind, where I was able to bench 60 kilograms or 135 pounds for 8 reps for my sets. And then a month later, I could only do 55 kilos. And then a few weeks after that, only 50 kilos. And I was asking the personal trainer at the gym, why am I getting weaker? And it was because I just wasn't eating enough food to actually fuel my sessions in the gym and fuel muscle growth. And the issue is with being skinny fat is that your muscle mass is actually also low. So a big part of the equation when it comes to fixing skinny fat physique is actually improving your muscle mass very rapidly. So because I wasn't eating enough food, I was getting weaker in the gym and I was actually losing muscle mass. I began to look worse and I kind of just looked emaciated and skinny rather than lean and muscular. So this all clicked in my mind during COVID when we were in lockdown and I was just training religiously in my home gym. And throughout that period of time, I started to eat more food. And what that allowed me to do was actually put on 5 kilos of body weight. So I went from around 63 kilograms to 68 kilograms. And you might be thinking, oh, you gained weight. That means you're gonna have gotten fatter. But what actually happened was that my body fat percentage decreased despite my weight increasing. And the reason this happens is because when your muscle mass increases, your body weight also increases. So I'll give you this example. if you were 60 kilograms and you held 10 kilograms of fat on your body, then your body fat percentage would be 16.7%. And then let's say you added 5 kilograms of muscle. So your body weight would now be 65 kilograms and your fat mass would still be 10 kilograms. But your body fat percentage would have actually decreased to 15.4% now. And the reason why is because the fat on your body has become relatively less in comparison to the amount of lean mass that's on your body. So you can add muscle, but your body fat percentage will decrease despite your fat mass actually staying the same. And this is exactly the phenomenon that occurred to me. I put on 5 kilograms of body weight, but somehow I look leaner after having done that. And the reason why is because I've just simply added muscle. And the reason I was able to add the muscle was because I was eating in a lean bulk. So 200 to 300 calories above my calorie burn every day. The third thing I learned was that you need to reset your metabolism. What happens after cutting for a long amount of time is your daily calorie expenditure will begin to drop. So you have this thing called your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories your body burns every day to just keep itself alive. And what happens when you start to weigh less is your body requires less energy to keep itself alive. So when I started cutting, my BMR might have been 2,000 calories. But after, say, 2 years of cutting, that would have dropped to something closer to 1,500 calories because I just weighed less after 2 years. Now, the issue with that is because you're burning less calories now, it means that in order to sustain the calorie deficit, you have to eat less food. And that is when you begin to starve yourself on ridiculous amounts of calories, like 1,500 calories per day, which is what I was doing. And it's not aided by the fact that you subconsciously will begin to move less. You'll sit down as opposed to stand. You'll take the car as opposed to walking places. And when your general level of activity also drops, that contributes to a lower calorie burn every day, which makes it so difficult to actually continue losing fat. So again, counterintuitively, you need to start eating more food whilst you're training so that you can increase your muscle mass. And by increasing your muscle mass, what that means is your body will require more energy to sustain itself every day because muscle is much more metabolically active. It requires more energy to upkeep. So when you have more muscle on your frame, you're going to be burning more calories at rest, which lets you maintain your leanness or even get leaner easier. The fourth thing I learned is that cutting eventually becomes unsustainable. So as I was saying, when I got to those latter stages of the cut, 2 years, 3 years in, my calorie intake was so low to the point where I was starving myself on 1,500 calories per day. Now, that is just absolutely ridiculous, especially when you're just thinking about food 24/7, when you can't even work because you're just so hungry, when you cannot even engage in a conversation with someone because all you're thinking about is food and candy and chips and chocolate bars and burgers and all the food in the world. So you're creating a rod for your own back because you're making it so difficult for yourself to actually lose the fat you want to. Because the evolutionary response to when you begin to starve yourself is to just crave all the food in the world and to not be satiated by the amount of food that you're eating. Because your body is essentially in this fight or flight mode where it thinks it's in danger because it's getting access to such low amounts of food. It thinks it's going to die. So as a result of that, it spikes you full of this feeling of just craving food all the time so that your body actually gets access to more food to keep itself alive. And when you couple that with a lower calorie burn because you just weigh less, then this is just a recipe for disaster and so incredibly unsustainable because you are burning less calories, but then also so prone to intaking way more calories because you're just hungry and starving all the time. And what that means is that it is so unsustainable. And so you need to revert back to increasing your metabolism by eating more food, by entering a lean bulk phase so that you can build muscle, so that number one, you look better, but also number two, you reset your calorie burn every day, making it in the future a way more sustainable approach to getting and staying lean over the long term. So again, if you learned anything from this video, I've got all my knowledge that I've packed in from 7 years of training, dieting, just living this life in the program. That's the link in the description below if you want to check that out. So please consider subscribing as well. We're getting to 20K subs soon, and I will see you in the next one.